Alrighty then. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday night. Welcome back to Rick the Rasslin Dad and his boys. It is time to cut them down a weight class and bump them up an age division so he can get in an easier bracket.
Bump them up an age division?
Yeah, like at Fargo.
Yeah, at Fargo, you know, it's like
do the old junior 106.
You cut down to one. You cut
106
down to like 98 and then go juniors.
Yeah.
That is not a bad
And you only got 11 people in your bracket, so you win one match and UAA, baby.
There you go.
That ain't a bad idea.
And then you double bracket them. You double bracket them in juniors and seniors.
Hey, your punishment ain't wrestling good at cadets, or you're wrestling tomorrow. Get to cutting. Back to juniors. We're gonna get that. We're coming home with that stop sign, no matter what.
Has your guys have either of your guys' dads ever made you wrestle an extra? I feel like you have some story about this, don't you?
No, I don't think so. I probably should have, but I didn't. No, because I just hated wrestling though at that age.
Was your dad ever like, "You're going again, son"?
No, at least not that I remember. And
Dave,
I probably
if you're out there, I
remember
know
that.
that's not what you sound
Actually,
like.
he does listen to this podcast.
He does.
so I'll
Okay.
have to
Well,
tell
Dave,
him.
I
No.
know you never do that.
No, he would. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. He didn't do it though. I'm pretty sure because if he did,
Dave,
I had
have.
a lot of reservations. I really hated wrestling until like later high school.
We talked
Really?
about that last week.
I don't think I was a
actually.
senior.
So why are you
My
acting
brother said it was a
surprised?
senior, but
You were a senior.
no, I think my brother says I didn't like it till I was a senior. I didn't not cut weight until I was a senior, so.
Well, there you go. Oh, boy. Hey, speaking of which, here's the deal. You know, my wife has been listening to the podcast. She's been motoring through them on Podcoin. Download Podcoin
Hey, Jazzy.
and listen and rack up your Podcoin points so you can get free stuff.
Still bonus, right?
Still bonus episode on Podcoin. Rick the Rasslin Dad and his boys. Search for us. And my wife has been telling me that I argue too much. Can you believe that?
You do argue for no reason a lot of times.
And change arguments halfway through.
And then, you slowly do a hot, like a slow boil into a totally different argument. But I will say this, you're very good at it.
A slow boil.
You're very sleek, yes. You're very sleek with it.
I'll take that. I appreciate that.
We call them all slow boil,
Appreciate you.
whatever Rick's last name is. Rick Slow
Dad.
Slow Boil.
My last name is Dad. Rick the Rasslin Dad. I've been known to argue a bit. You know, I'm gonna try to hold back a little bit. I'm gonna try to keep myself in check. I'm gonna try to argue a little less. Have a little more fun.
Well, I mean, we do need some, because we generally agree.
She did say it's pretty much you two against me.
Yeah.
Is basically the theme of the podcast.
because you have
we're
stupid
right.
thoughts.
Yeah. And you're
stupid opinions.
And you're a communist.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Coach Etherton, my co-host, Mr. Smooth GD, sitting right next to me. Next to Mr. SGD is Drew. I almost called him Drew. Jeff.
He wishes
his name was Drew. The body, the pride of Stockwell Street, Rutledge. Mr. SGD, tell us what our sponsor is tonight.
All right, well, our sponsor, I mean, they just keep getting better. Last week, CNC Produce. This week, we have Mountain Dew. Thanks for sponsoring the podcast. A little Mountain Dew Liberty Brew. I believe this was probably brewed for the 4th of July. And haven't actually had it yet, but...
Do you brew pop?
Mountain Dew Brew.
Yeah, Liberty Brew.
Liberty Brew.
Yep. So go to the store, and before you can't get it anymore, get some Mountain Dew Liberty Brew.
Yeah, I'm gonna start becoming a pop home brewer.
Yeah.
That's like making my own flavors of pop. Yeah, I got a couple different carboys down in the basement making up real, just different kind of pop.
Like you're running some illegal soda there.
Oh, that is interesting. Why is it that people like a diversity of beverage when it comes to alcoholic beverage, but when it comes to soda pop, you go to the store, you go to Taco Bell, Taco Bell's a bad example because they have like 4 different kinds of Mountain Dew, but you go to McDonald's, you got your average 6 kinds of pop.
Well, I would think it maybe has something to do with if you drink a lot of soda, it's very unhealthy for you, and if you drink a lot of brew, some would say it heals the inside wounds. But that's just what I heard once.
All right.
I don't know if that's...
Oh,
I don't condone that. That's just what I've heard. I choose Mountain Dew Liberty Brew.
50, what's it say on there? 50 flavors. 50 flavors.
That's way too many flavors. I thought my favorite soda outside of Mountain Dew Liberty Brew is Dr. Pepper, and that has only 23. So maybe 50 would be better, or maybe that's just a suicide.
They're trying to one-up them.
Maybe that's a suicide.
Actually, they're trying to 27
of
up
brew.
them.
You know, like when you did that as a kid.
Yeah. Here's the deal. We better get to some wrestling because we're about 5 minutes into the cast.
Maybe
and,
introduce the comment, and then we'll make best comment.
Yeah, best comment. So whoever gets best comment, you are going to win this gently used chapstick skin protectant classic flavoring that I found in my suit jacket from a wedding that I previously attended.
Is that SPF?
I believe it's 15.
Okay, not bad.
Yep.
Something.
It doesn't say
Doesn't
that.
say.
So
well,
it's been on Drew Etherton's lips. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll let our listeners
I'll give it a little test
decide.
out right here.
More than likely, not a great thing.
Well,
but we don't know.
It has melted a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't look great.
Well,
Coach
best
Rutledge,
comment.
now that we've got our sponsorships and giveaways out of the way, tell us what we're going to be talking about on the cast tonight.
We're going to talk about wrestling records, right? There's a lot of them out there. Which ones are good? Which ones are maybe you'd call stupid records to have up on the old wall as you walk down in the hallway? Get into some wrestling.
Record board.
Yeah. And then, hey, the classic debate. We've made it. This is episode 10. Pretty sweet.
Episode 10.
We've done this 10 times. And, man, I've had fun doing it.
9.1. But, yeah, we're about to have done it 10
and
times.
we're going.
All right, fair enough.
We're kicking.
But we're here. We made it to the classic freestyle versus folkstyle debate. Let's get into that a little bit. Talk about some women's wrestling in high school women's wrestling, and then maybe some who would win.
All right. Well, so I believe that I was the caster. That's what we like to call ourselves. Casters. We're podcasters for short. That brought up the idea of the stupid records. Here's where I was going with that, guys. I saw a guy post up on his social media a little while back about his son's fastest pin trophy.
Ooh.
The old fastest pin trophy.
Big fan of the fastest pin.
I got my son out there and I had him throw him in a head and arm. And squeeze it and pin him in under 3.5
No messing around out there. Make this one quick.
Yep. Uh-huh. And so I figured the fastest pin trophy, I came up with a better name for it, guys. It's called I Wrestled the Worst Wrestler of the Tournament trophy.
Oh, they should actually give that out. And then make the worst wrestler at the tournament give it to him.
It's a more apt description of what is actually going on. Okay, so fastest pin trophy. Not a big fan of it. Not a big fan of it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What's the fastest pin that you've ever seen?
I don't know. 4 seconds probably.
I mean, I feel like
you
if
remember
it's
the match?
less than 3 seconds, it can't be real.
The guy falls over. The guy literally falls to his shoulder blade. Jumps to his shoulder blade.
I could see 3 seconds, maybe.
I had a 6-second pin. I was
You did?
coaching, No. I was coaching a wrestler. It was the match to qualify for state. Now, Nebraska wrestling people out there know Class A can sometimes be on the weaker side at the district tournament. All right,
Okay.
maybe that's a debate for another day.
I don't
But
think that's a huge debate. I think that's pretty well known.
okay, fair enough. So
Not
have
all the time.
a wrestler.
Not all the time.
He, I believe, lose first round. He has a bye, and then he has a wrestler for the match to go to state, and he was wrestling 112 pounds, I believe, was the weight class at the time, and he was wrestling somebody that weighed 90 pounds. Like he couldn't win
Just a horse.
at 103, so he wasn't the varsity guy at 103, so he weighed 90, 85, 80. I mean, he was tiny.
Yeah.
And it was literally, and my guy knew he was amped. He was like, I know I'm gonna make it to state because there's absolutely no way that this guy can beat me. And it was just like, tweet, boom, pin. And he's like, yeah, we celebrate. I'm like,
What did he do? Head throw?
No, I think he just did a hip toss. He literally just grabbed him and threw him down.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
if you put it to work.
what else can you do besides just grabbing a hold of the person and throwing them to their back?
But I'll tell you what, it was very fortunate that he had that opponent because now his name is on the record board.
Touche. Okay, so he's got his fastest pin trophy. Also, did coincidentally probably wrestle the worst wrestler in the tournament.
That is 100% accurate.
Okay. So let's get some other trophies. Let's get some other awards thrown out there that might
most escapes. So it's like you got taken down a lot, and then they maybe let you go.
What if that's a skill though that you had to acquire? It's like, I mean, I bait
It's not
this guy.
nearly as. It's not nearly as.
How would
I
you
would
develop
say,
that skill? Get taken down and then get an escape.
Yeah,
you're -1 every time.
No,
I mean,
it's a psychological warfare. You are baiting the guy into thinking that he has to cut you every time. It's a psychological warfare. You tick him off so bad he doesn't even want to pin you. He's like, nope, I'm cutting him.
You could see it to where a guy's really good off bottom and the other guy's very good on his feet, to where you end up getting a lot of escapes in a match. But maybe I've had that from personal experience.
Yeah.
But
man, I thought
that's not something that shows usually that shows wrestling superiority by escapes. Now, being able to escape is a good thing, but the most escapes, it's probably not going to be your most successful wrestler. I'd be interested to see if someone who was the best wrestler on a team also then had the most escapes.
If we lived in an alternate world where everybody tried to turn their opponent when they were on top, and everybody tried to always go for the pin when they're on top, no matter what, then you could have the record of most escapes. Because that would demonstrate
mean something more.
That would demonstrate the guy who's the best at knowing how to get up off bottom.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we live in a world where people seem to, for some reason, and I think we're going to get into this here in a second. This might be a nice segue.
You just wanted to use that word.
Yeah. Is it Segway or Sedgway? Which one's the one where you ride on two wheels like Paul Blart?
Segway? I believe it's both, actually.
Paul Blart rides on a Segway?
Yeah.
Or a Sedgway?
Let me add one more thing on this little escape thing here. There was one season in high school where I, in one single match, doubled my escapes for the year, and let's just say that match didn't go great for me. So I had 14 escapes on the year, and I believe I had 7 escapes in my final match that season.
Let's go back. Let's pour a little salt in the wound for our listeners. Coach E over here, he happened to have been the most winningest wrestler in Nebraska history at one point in time. He had the most wins, which is actually a very good record. I think is, to have a win record. That's a record that is worth
good
keeping.
Record.
All right, that's a great record. Now, he happened to have bumped up and wrestled in a weight class with undoubtedly the best wrestler that year in the state.
Unbeknownst to us at the time, future world team member.
Rayvon Perkins.
Yep.
And the year before,
he was a world team member in Greco. Let's let that be known.
Coach E was very close to beating him. He lost by a thin margin. He just, he got that eye of the tiger look in him.
That was the previous year.
Yes.
The previous year.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Junior year.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So he got the eye of the tiger, and he's like, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to go bump up, and I'm going to make it happen. Didn't want to be dehydrated is probably what happened. Okay? And so we're super excited about this matchup. It's going to be a great match. And then all of a sudden, old Mr. Perkins takes him down within the first 2 seconds of the match. And the previous time they had wrestled, Coach E had Grambian him for 5, I believe, maybe 2 times.
Yeah, the two times we wrestled previously, I put him on his back a few times in the match from bottom.
Oh.
So for some reason, he decided that
I don't know if there's for some reason. I think it's pretty apparent.
I'm not going to play this top-bottom game. I am literally going to take him down and then cut him. And he did it unmercifully for 6 minutes.
Well, and then it got worse because it's like, now I'm desperate because I got taken down 3 times, and I'm like, no, now I got to do something. So then it got worse.
It was probably one of the more painful matches that I remember watching.
It was pretty good. I remember the first takedown, and I just go, and he cuts me right away, and I go, oh, he figured it out this time.
At what point? At what point in that match were you like?
The first takedown when he cut me, because he was always, I guess he would have been. I don't know if this is true, but people have told me that he was telling people he can ride me, and I was like, oh sweet, this is like, please keep thinking. Which I mean, he wasn't bad on top, but I was like, that's where I had an advantage. And then when he cut me, I was like, he's not going that route.
I remember
this could get messy unless I can pull something off.
Well,
but which I had almost done the last time from my feet. So I don't know. We'll see.
So
we did see. We'll see.
So we'll see if we just go back and watch the tape, which I've never done.
We'll see.
So
hey,
I don't know
see.
if that's so we'll see. We'll see.
I don't know.
I mean, I guess
what would you do if he said, "Hey, I'm gonna give you one more shot, but it's in Greco, and I'll let you have it, but I have to try to ride you Folkstyle."
First off, he's huge now.
What's he weigh? What's his weight class? I think he's 70 kilos, isn't he?
He's Ellis Coleman's weight.
he's
well, maybe that is
70. I think
that's
that might be 70 kilos.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah,
he says, "Hey, I'm gonna give you a minute where I have to ride you, Folkstyle."
He would ride me.
And
71 kilos.
And then after
would
that,
for sure
we
ride
go
me out.
Greco for a minute.
He would
on
for
our
sure
feet.
tech me in 10 seconds.
But the old bull's got to take one more shot.
I think I don't know. I think get him. I'll limber up a little bit.
You're the same weight. He's 156.
Seriously?
Oh dang!
That's what 71
Dude,
kilos.
He's
Rematch.
way bigger.
Let's
he
tweet
must
at
cut
him.
a bit to get.
Tweet at him,
Tweet
see if we can make this happen.
Make that set up.
Well, charity event.
No, thank you.
For charity for the you wouldn't do it for the kids.
I will do anything for. I would wrestle him for $5, but I have to get $5 because he'll tech me in.
This will go to the Drew
He'll tech me
charity.
in no time, which I am okay with.
All right. Well, but he could also throw you on your spleen or something.
Yeah, I think I just give it up real quick and then just let him gut me a bunch.
Hey, getting gutted doesn't feel good either.
Hey, back to the fastest pin real quick.
Back to the fastest pin.
So I would agree with you that is a terrible record or trophy to get, but I think a cool one is the most falls in the least amount of time.
Most falls, least amount of time is a great award.
Are you guys dripping by chance?
Great
right now?
award.
Because
I'm
I'm
not. I'm
dripping in sweat.
And
I completely
Sorry for my
agree.
unprofessionalism.
And
people.
old Adam Keysweater, our buddy, who common listener to the show,
Common follower.
Division II Gregorian Award at the Division II National Wrestling Tournament. I believe 5 pins.
That's insane.
And in a short amount of time. So that is an excellent record.
Yeah, that
around.
actually encourages. So then we're about to get into this right now. That encourages wrestlers to want to try to complete the goal of the match as efficiently as possible. The goal of the match is to pin the other wrestler. And so it encourages wrestlers to go for that as hard and as fast as they can. That's, in my opinion, a great award to give out. So let's use that as a little transition or a segue or a segue into the idea of taking guys down and letting them up. It's a little bit of a hot topic within the wrestling community. Maybe it's not actually.
It's actually not a hot topic.
Maybe it's not that hot of a topic.
I think we're gonna ruffle a lot of feathers because I think it's mostly commonly accepted that that's the cool thing to do. Is the most takedown award. We actually don't really agree with that. We would be on the side that if you can take somebody down 10 times in a match and all you're doing is taking them down and letting them up, taking them down and letting them up, are you really getting any better at takedowns?
If that's an area you need to work on. I do think it matters who the wrestler is. Like your dad used to let me do it because I need to work on my neutral wrestling. And so I would but I wouldn't just cut them like a lot of people do in more of a, shall you say, unsportsmanlike way when the match is close. Or when the match is not close. Like, I'm okay with hard cuts. I'm okay with cutting people that way when it's a close match and you're trying to wear them out. And that you actually, like, the closer the match, I'm way better with the hard cut and to make it rough on them, get on their head as you cut them. But if it's one of those things where you can probably just take this guy down a lot, then I'm not for that.
I think what Coach Rudd is maybe saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Coach R, is if you can take a guy down 10 or more times within the time span of 6 minutes, is that really improving? Is that really helping improve your takedowns? I mean, if you can beat a guy that easily, that bad, is that really improving your takedown position? Whereas it's like you're so much superior to that guy, you know, that's not really gonna.
Well, if you could take him down and you could just pin him, that's the difference. Rayvon took me down 8 times in that match, but
so I said 10 or more.
That was more. That is true. That is true.
Yeah,
but that is more of a, that was a strategy.
That's completely different. What we're talking about here is
so it's not all. It's not.
What we're
just
talking
one
about
thing.
is chasing records. So the really stud wrestler who goes out there and takes guys down, lets them up, takes them down, lets them up, takes them down, lets them up, takes them down, lets them up, knowing that you could pin them in the first period, but instead they're chasing a record. And whether that's right or wrong, I guess it just doesn't sit very well with me when your sole purpose for wrestling is to achieve a record, especially a record that I think would actually harm your ability to improve in the future. That by chasing takedown records, you're not spending the time that you need to getting better in the top position, which as we watch high schoolers transition into college, you've got to be proficient in all 3 positions. You've got to be able to get off bottom, and you've got to be able to ride. And if you can incorporate turns into your game, you develop as a more complete wrestler, and you're a lot more appealing to college coaches, and you're going to see a lot more success at the higher levels.
And, you know, some people might try to use my argument against me. What I was kind of saying earlier was like, if you can just take a guy down so easily that you almost like don't even have to try to take him down, is it really helping improve your takedowns? Well, a person could maybe try to use that argument against me and say, if you can turn a guy super easily to his back and flop him on his back and pin him, is that really improving your top game? Well, I would say 2 things in response to that. First of all would be, if you're just never in the top position at all, regardless, first of all, you just don't really know how good you are at it because you just don't have any experience in that position. And I think that's the issue that you're describing here, Coach Rutt, is that a lot of guys run into this problem where it's just like they're just literally never there. So it's like they don't even know like the body feels of being like on the mat, wrestling on the mat wrestling. And so then they get into college and it's like because they're like not experienced in the feeling of those positions, it's hard for them to then dramatically improve all of a sudden in those positions. So that would be the first thing that I would say. And then the second thing that I would say to it is when you're thinking about sportsmanship, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, which seems to be more sportsman? Taking a guy down and letting him up 15 times or pinning him in 15 seconds? To me, if it were me, now this might sound, I guess, I don't know, it's weird to put yourself in that position, but I would rather be pinned quickly than getting taken down and let up.
Which is a reason why some people do it. It's because it's more, a lot of people would say it's more dominant, which that's an argument, but that's not the goal of wrestling. That's like a football team. I mean, it's not quite as similar to what I'm about to say, but a football team's like, you know what? We can beat you so bad. We're going to drive to the 1 yard line. We're going to kick a field goal every time.
No, I know.
And we're going to still beat you by 40.
Yes.
And it's like,
and is that sportsman? It's
not sportsman.
Yeah.
But
I think
some
that's
people,
a really good analogy.
But some people don't care. And so, I mean, just by saying it's not sportsman, like,
I think
a lot of people don't care about
I think
that.
in the football community, a lot of people would care. But in the wrestling community, for some reason, people don't care. It's not really an issue that gets brought up a whole lot.
Has that ever happened where a team has actually driven to the 1 yard line and kicked a field goal?
I did it on NCAA football once.
Okay, so nice.
Wow,
just
you're one of
see
those
how
guys.
many field goals my kicker could get.
But I think that's actually a great analogy. People would, if that actually happened, that would probably like make national news.
Yeah.
If a team did that, that would probably make national news. In my opinion, that's not that far off of what guys are doing when they're taking guys down and letting them up the whole entire match when they could very easily pin the guy. The goal of wrestling is to pin the guy. The goal of football is to score touchdowns.
Yep.
It's a pretty good analogy.
Well,
It's
I mean,
like,
wrestling is to hold another person the same size as you on their back. I mean, that when you get to the very root of wrestling, I mean, animals do it. Dogs do it. You know, you see like cats and all that. The wildlife, they wrestle too with each other, and it's to pin them. And that's kind of where wrestling comes from. So if that's the goal, then I don't see why people just think that like this one aspect, like, oh, I'm just really good at this one thing. I'm like, well, that's not the sport. The sport is that's like someone who's really good at stand up and MMA, but then when they go to the ground, they're not very proficient. It's like, well, that's not the idea of MMA. You should just do kickboxing or something.
Going back to what you said earlier, and this is gonna hopefully not take us on too far of a rabbit trail, but you said, people will do stuff like drive up the score in football or take a guy down and let him up in wrestling or whatever, because it's like, well, I don't care. That's their problem. I'm doing me. I'm doing my thing. I don't care. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the definition of sportsmanship, right? Is caring about the other person's experience in sport as well as your own.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's, to me, I don't know, at least to me, that's a simple working definition of sportsmanship. And so it's like, people, that's one thing that bothers me a lot in wrestling that people do say is like, if you're not man enough to take it, then don't wrestle. It's like, well, that's not.
Like,
that's not how I
have
want
that
my-
person wrestle whatever world team member is closest to their weight, and then be like, okay, hey, whoever you are, Jaden Cox, go do this to him, and then see how it feels. I think what's great about wrestling, and that is good about a lot of high school football or some high school sports, is they do have mercy rules, which I do think needs to be implemented. Like, we have technical falls in wrestling, which is good.
Did you see? Sorry.
No, you're good. No, so it can't get too bad in high school football in some states. I know in Colorado, my cousins played there. Their goal was to mercy rule every team by before the fourth quarter, and they're
For
state
football?
champs. Yeah, and they did. But it's not. They didn't beat them 110-0. They beat them 60 or 50 to nothing.
Yeah.
And then it was over.
Yeah.
In the third quarter, and so it's like, okay, mercy rule. That helps prevent to where if a team is too good, then it's like, okay, we can't not score because this other team's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
To where it's like, what do you want us to do? Down the ball? Is that more sportsmanlike?
Yeah.
Or is that just like,
Yeah.
At some point it gets so bad to where I do think mercy rules need to come in most sports.
And that's actually, I think that supports this exact same concept we're talking about. Is like, in some ways, pinning a guy and having the match be over with quicker. I mean, that's kind of like, you can't really have a better definition of the word mercy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like pinning a guy that you're far superior wrestler to and having the match be over with quicker rather than just beating the crap out of him for 6 minutes. Like, to me, that shows more mercy. Like, the definition of the word mercy rule is that you're not going to extend pain on somebody.
And it's the maximum team points for your team. You score more points for your team in a pin than you do in a tech fall. So we have won a duel on this exact same thing, where a guy on the other team was taking one of our wrestlers down, letting him up, taking him down, letting him up, taking him down, letting him up. He scored too many points. When he finally tried to pin him, our guy got off his back, and we tied the duel and won on criteria. And it was a huge upset for our team, and it was because their best wrestler was I don't think he was trying to embarrass our wrestler, but he was definitely just taking him down, letting him up.
Well,
and then that ended up us winning the duel. And I'm assuming that guy did not feel great afterwards.
No.
When he saw that. So I think it's score the maximum points for your team. If you're just that much better, then it's like, why would you not want that? I don't know. I don't see that's why the point.
If you're one of those people that says, I don't care about the other person, that's that other person's, whatever he feels, whatever, is fine. Well, then you'd have to be on the side of that that mercy rules shouldn't exist, right? That a tech fall, we shouldn't have a tech fall.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say
Which
is
they used to not to.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say
Yeah.
is Gene Mills on Flow Wrestling has a sweet interview about how he basically tech falls came into an existence because he was beating people at the Olympic Games like 80-2. Like, and he would literally put people to the back and then let them up and then put them and he would see how many points he could score. You got to go to Flow Wrestling, look up Gene Mills, and watch the the video. It's pretty funny.
When a
character.
When we were reffing in college, if a kid in like we'd go ref at youth tournaments for money. If there was a kid that was just doing that to another kid, if the kid even his back even sniffed the mat, I would call it standing.
Fall.
And that's happened. And the other kid would get so mad at me. I'm like, oh, it's been.
Like,
and I'm just like, I'm not gonna let you do that to this kid.
So I want to
go ahead.
Do at least one more thing on this takedown bit. I think, and we've talked about Max a little bit on this podcast, but he's probably been one of the best wrestlers that we've all coached, and one of the things that I think I've seen the greatest growth and development is when he has been challenged on top, when the guy on bottom, and this comes from guys that he is way better than, that he could tech fall probably in the first period, but when we force him to do something that he's uncomfortable doing, and that is AKA riding, and when I think he came his freshman year, he liked to get the takedown and start scoring big time points, but the most development and probably the thing that I'm most proud of watching Max as a coach is his ability to ride on top now and to pin people, because he just passed Drew's record last year. He's now is the Spartan falls record, and his just ability to find a pin against, and it was frustrating at first for him because he knew it was guys that he should be beating by a lot worse, but they fought him on bottom, and he had to find a way. And now, 3 years into the program, he's finding a way and getting that feel to being able to put guys on their back and pin them, and that makes him a lot better at the higher levels, and I think is going to translate into a lot of success at the college level.
Now, we've already kind of alluded to this, but just to be clear, we are not completely against cutting a guy. There are definitely circumstances that we believe merit letting a guy go and going back to your feet to wrestle. Number one, if it just involves strategy because the guy's really good on bottom. There's a lot of different situations. I mean, we aren't even against the idea of a guy needing to work on his feet. But typically where we're going to say that a guy needs to do that, if we think he needs to get more experience on his feet, it's going to be against a guy that can put up a little bit at least of a fight against him. It's going to be a guy where he's going to have to work for those takedowns. And it's like, okay, yeah, cut him and let's get another one. You had to work for it. Cut him, let's get another one.
There's a big situation we've all seen coaching where we need a pin in a duel, and our wrestler is a better wrestler, but he's not very good on top, where he's not going to pin him from top. The best way for him to pin him is to take him down to his back. And so there's been a lot of times where we've had guys do that, where it's like the best way to get a pin here is to take him down to his back, and if you don't get him to his back, cut him again and try it a few more times. There's a lot of reasons to cut people and to just take them down, but you know it when you see it, when it's something you shouldn't be doing. Especially, I think you see it when people chase takedown records, which is I don't know. So I don't think any of us are for.
Let me ask this question. This is kind of an interesting question with regard to this whole topic. Why does the majority of the wrestling community disagree with us on this issue? It would seem that way anyway. I mean, there are people that probably agree with us, but it would seem that in conversations that we've had over the years, most people are just kind of like, yeah, take them down, let them up. Like, what's the big deal? Get some guys like to wrestle on the feet. Some guys like to go takedowns.
I think it comes from a sincere desire for a kid to get a lot better. And I think when you see somebody that's so dominant at doing it, you think, oh, I want to be like them. I want to be able to develop my skill like they are. And just because you see somebody do it doesn't mean that, oh, yeah, they got really good at taking people down because that's all they do, right? And I think it comes from, hey, I want to develop and I want to be a stud, and all studs are really good on their feet. And let's be honest, like most guys that are really good at the sport of wrestling are pretty good on their feet, and so that is an important position. But I think when you think a little bit deeper, when you think about overall complete development of the parterre position, and then also when you think about sportsmanship that got brought up in this conversation, I just don't think people have thought about it long and hard enough to be able to, form a different opinion from what they initially had.
That's what I feel like. I feel like a lot of parents and coaches that I talk to that push back on me on this, and I guess this is sort of a cop-out, but it's like I just feel like a lot of them haven't really spent that much time actually thinking about it. It's just like, hey, you know when you see if it's your kid out there that's the one that is getting taken down and let up a million times during the course of one wrestling match, you know that feels difficult. Like, that feels difficult for you, that feels difficult for him, that feels embarrassing. So I don't know, it's just interesting. I just feel like a lot of people maybe haven't spent that much time actually thinking about this issue.
And I think the sport of wrestling is, to pin somebody's shoulders down to the mat is a form of dominating another person, right? And so we have that feeling of like domination is what you have to, learn as an opponent and as somebody that's going out in there and doing it. Your desire is to go and to go dominate. And so I think that oftentimes we don't think anything more of it. I'm dominating them. They're learning from that domination. That's the only way that they can learn. But I think when you dig down a little bit deeper and think about that person's perspective and overall development, that finding the pin on against a kid that you can take down 15 times is the better option.
Well, and it's, one, to come back against that, I mean, and you know this, but people will say, well, you can get caught and pinned, you can't get caught and teched. And to an extent that is true, but also the point of wrestling is to pin them, to where I do think a lot of times the guys who do just take them down and let them up are not maybe that good on top. Maybe they can't. I had a teammate in college who was not good at pinning, but could take him down and could turn him, take him down, let him up, take him down, let him up, turn him. He could not pin people. And so I think you know who I'm talking about, maybe, but his thought was, and what he put off was like, yeah, I'm dominating him. I'm gonna tech him all the time. I'm gonna get the most techs. And it's like, I don't think you actually, if you had to pin him, you actually could pin him. I think you're trying to cover that up by not being a pinner, by just saying you want to tech guys. And again, most amount of team points, and it's the most dominant form of winning in wrestling because it's worth the most points. I don't know.
No, yeah, it's good.
Agreed.
All right.
Oh, hey, one last one.
Yep.
Stupid records. Near fall for 2.
Oh, yeah.
I want to chase that one.
Like, no.
1, 2, 3, 4. You forget. You're like, oh
let
crap!
him up.
Oh crap! I almost made it to 5.
Near fall for 4.
That was a close call.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I would almost just say near fall in general. Stupid.
I think we put that in our stat book, don't we?
We do.
Please
it
take
pops
that
up
out.
on track
Please take that out.
track wrestling.
Near fall for
my
3 is
gosh.
dumb.
No, that's not dumb.
Yeah, you should get 1 a match. And actually, you shouldn't even get that. You should, if you're the most
What about
dominant,
tilts,
you take
bro?
them down and pin them.
We're like good and
Okay, but if you tilt them, but you could pin them, would you not just pin them?
Well, in college,
The most dominant thing, you would not get a
wrestling-
bunch of near fall 3s.
In college
Or not
wrestling,
near
it's a
fall
lot
4.
easier to get a near fall for 3 than it is to get a pin.
Okay. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying it's not a dominant record. It's
I
an
would agree with
inferior record.
Well, yeah.
Near fall for 2 is definitely an inferior record.
If you're asking me, would I rather have the most pins record or the most near fall for 3 record? Yeah, I'd rather have the most pins record. But still,
The goal to turn somebody is essentially, I mean, not every turn, but to turn them, if you could pin them, you'd probably choose to pin them.
oh yeah,
Okay, so then it's
But-
an inferior record.
inferior to most pins, yes.
But I think
not-
there's superior and inferior records. And that's an inferior record. Same as escapes, same as takedown for 2, or same as takedowns. I would say takedown records is an inferior record.
The reason why escapes is an inferior record is because you're not performing a skill to get the escape if a guy's cutting you.
Well, no.
So that's
well,
what
if
makes
he's
that
cutting you, yes.
That's what makes that an inferior record. But But near fall for 3, you're still
Is there
performing
something superior to that in the same category?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pin.
And I would rather have the
and
most
if somebody
pins.
has, but the guy who has the most near fall threes probably does not have the most pins.
All right, I agree.
Well,
Inferior record.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if this is where it's going.
Well,
I think
can you at least admit...
There's probably only 2 records you should keep.
Can you at least admit that near fall for 3 is a better record than most escapes?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so...
But it's also...
You're admitting that there's degrees of...
Yeah, but it's inferior. It's still not a good record.
But it's superior to escapes.
Okay, it's like...
Okay,
it's in the category
don't do
of
this.
records.
I'm getting annoyed right now.
This is what he's doing, and he's egging me on, and I'm just not
Do
gonna back out from
not. Oh, so it is superior to Doug crap. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Would you rather have...
You just want to say superior.
Would you
yes,
rather
it is
have
a superior.
the near fall for 3 record
Gosh.
or a flaming bag of dog crap on your doorstep? Which would you rather have? No.
What did the dog eat? That's the main question.
Yes, I got him. I won.
No, you didn't.
Oh my!
Hey
gosh.
guys, we're halfway through the podcast,
right.
and we need to get some comments.
get-
all right, there
let's-
is
yeah.
Drew's
Guys, there's
chapstick.
some chapstick on the board
Who's
here.
gonna win the chapstick?
I really do not want to give this up, so...
Who's gonna win the chapstick? All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little folk versus a little free. Folk style or freestyle? Go.
In what? Like,
Just say folk style or freestyle.
folk style.
Okay, Coach Rutt.
Folk style.
I am also folk style. I'll say this: for the first time ever, watching NCAA wrestling, watching the NCAA championships this year, March Madness, I was getting so annoyed with the challenges, with the calls that felt extremely subjective. I said to Terrell once during NCAA championships this year, I said, I'm almost to the point where I feel like freestyle has become almost more objective than...
No, that is the
Folkstyle.
most ridiculous statement.
Dude, the NCAA championships were brutal this last year. The number of challenges, the number of calls where the coaches...
You know exactly what they're arguing. In freestyle wrestling, there's 3 judges that put up different numbers as to how it should be scored. In folkstyle wrestling, you're arguing, is that a takedown or is that not a takedown? Right? That's what you're talking about. You're talking about the DeSanto match.
Yep.
Okay? You're talking about the Mark Hall match. And who was
We also
that?
got Fix, Soriano.
That's headgear pull.
Well, that was headgear pull, yeah. Well,
That's a rule.
Stalling was the big thing that really bothered me a lot.
Yeah, stalling rules is dumb.
So subjective that it literally...
More subjective than a correct throw call?
Well, okay, maybe those calls are similar, but for whatever reason...
Similar?
But, I mean, in their subjectivity. But to me, it seems like the correct throw call happens way less than the stalling call. I mean, yeah, that's also a subjective call that I don't like in freestyle. I'll give you that. But it's like, but at least it's not happening constantly every single match.
That's a recent rule that will probably be changed at some point in the future. Could be near future.
I was so fed up with the stalling calls and the difference in the way that they were called this past college season. It drove me insane. Now, I didn't feel that way in high school and during high school season, but dude, I mean, that stalling call has to change.
Yes, for sure.
Did they change it or did they modify it? No,
I don't think so. And I don't know. I'll disagree with you. I don't think it was that bad.
Ooh,
Just
man.
know this: if you go out of bounds, you plan on getting hit for stalling. If you don't get hit for stalling, then you're lucky.
Well, then heavyweight wrestling has just totally changed. Like, heavyweight wrestling is sumo now. If you're Sam Stoll, why don't do anything, just push.
He literally did it to Mason Paris.
And it was like stall calls. He almost got stalled out of the match, and then he kept doing it, and then they started calling Sam Stoll for stalling for doing the
he was doing the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. And I mean, that was one of the most frustrating matches I've ever watched in my life. And it's ruined now, and maybe I don't think it's nearly as bad at the lower weights. or at the middleweights. I don't.
Well, yeah,
They
'cause
can
those
move
guys
better.
are better.
Well, yeah, but that was so frustrating to
Come
watch.
to our side
I
of
know.
things.
I know.
You got
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do think mostly
The
the bigger guys and especially heavyweight is where that rule really is really upsetting.
I'll at least say this. I like high school wrestling way more. I like the high school wrestling rules way more than I like the college wrestling rules right now.
I agree with that.
I'll at
The
least say
reason
that.
why they had to change it was because the referees were too scared to call stalling.
Yeah, but
and
now
that's
it's like enforced
fine.
stalling.
That's fine. And now this is where you and I have had this argument before, and I know we're not in agreement on it yet. I'll probably win you over one of these days here because I'm so good at arguing. I hate stalling so much because it is so subjective and it changes the outcome of so many matches and it changes the situation of so many matches when a guy is ahead by 1 point at the end of the match and then all of a sudden the match is tied and now the match is a completely different match in the last 20 seconds, or it puts a match into overtime, or it makes a guy lose, or it's so subjective and it gets called so much and it's so hard to understand why one ref calls it one way and the other ref calls it the other way. Go to a push out. And I realize that changes the game of wrestling a little bit.
Makes the mat way smaller.
It makes the mat way smaller. And it does add some sort of a kind of sumo-ish aspect to the sport. It's at least way more objective than stalling.
But that takes away the referee's ability to say, Sam stole. All you're doing right now is pushing, and I know that. So how about you actually wrestle instead of just push? It gives a coach, and now the referee in that match was not doing that. They was giving him stalling. He was about to be stalled out of the match. But it at least gives somebody an option to use their common sense to say, hey, all you are doing is trying to shove him off the mat. You should wrestle instead. Whereas what you're proposing is for Sam Stoll to get a point every single time.
Well, or at least Mason Paris feels way more of a sense of urgency of getting his butt to the center.
I definitely think he's felt a sense of urgency when he almost got DQ'd.
Yeah.
From a match that he beat 2 weeks before at Big Tens.
Yeah.
And that was and he was favored, and it was, I mean, watching that match, he's not trying to not wrestle. He's literally trying to scoot around, and he's just he's so much smaller.
But at least, and maybe Sam Stoll wins that match because he's better at pushing the guy out. But
yeah.
But at least,
And then he did an AA.
at least we now have. At least Mason Paris now knows what to train for.
But you did not.
Hold on.
Do you not think he didn't know that already?
At least Mason Paris knows now what to train for, no matter who the official is. Okay, so
But you don't think
because that same official then called Sam Stoll for stalling, like you said.
I know,
and
because he doesn't know what he's doing.
And Mason Paris is like, yeah, thank you. It's about freaking time.
But he already given up. I think. I mean, was it 3 or 4 points by then? It's like, well, the match. I mean, it's thanks now.
But the point is maybe Mason Paris didn't really.
Come on.
No,
it's
hold
at
on.
the national tournament.
No.
He's wrestled heavyweight already.
You don't
for
think
a
they've
year.
worked on circle your butt to the center?
No,
you don't
he's
think
wrestled
Michigan does
Sam
that?
Stoll twice.
But here's my point: is maybe the coaches are like, okay, Stoll's probably going to try to underhook us and drive us out. We need to circle our butt to the center. We need to work on that or whatever.
Hey,
but
I could have told him that.
But they're like, but the Michigan coaches are thinking rationally in the mind of an official with common sense, the common sense that you're talking about, saying, okay, but at least we know, common sense wise, that if an official just sees Stoll just trying to drive us out, they're going to at least call Stoll for stalling. Right? Or we're not going to get the stall.
But here's the thing: is the first few times they will call it on Paris, and then but by the time they're like, oh, this is all he's doing, it's too late. Mason Paris has already given up 4 points. Like it's like, oh, well, now you recognize it 4 points later.
No,
or 3 points.
Yeah,
I don't exactly remember how
I think this
stalling
only
ones
supports
goes.
my point: is that it's insanely subjective.
No, but because they're like, do we really DQ this guy? Like I think it's ridiculous
subjective.
how many people get DQ'd from stall calls. I've never really seen it that often. Very handful of times, and I saw it so much this last year.
Yeah, And again,
it's ridiculous. Like, just because a guy can push you does not mean I'm stalling. If I wrestle Travell as hard as I can, and he's like, my goal is to stall him out, he will do it very fast.
No, and
that's not stalling. That's him just pushing me out.
And again, I think
it's a terrible rule. I think
it's just
make it more subjective, and then maybe just better education for wrestling refs.
I think the problem with that argument is it's like, I mean, you want to have better education for the refs and more consistency of calls, but some rules inherently lead themselves to just interpretation, and refs, and no matter how much you try to like train every ref, each ref comes in with their own bias on how they view the sport of wrestling. And so it's like, I really value a guy who can push another guy around the mat and bully him. That's what one ref values. Another ref values, a guy that, shoots a lot. Another guy ref values, it's just, they all come with their own bias. And so it's like, that's why if the rule lends itself towards subjectivity, in some instances, I would say it doesn't matter how much you train the refs.
Yeah, well, in Karl Marx's perfect world...
Oh, boy.
Well, I'm just saying. Karl Marx's perfect world, it would be... Stalling is when they are avoiding wrestling. Whether that's you ding them once, and 5 seconds later they're doing the same thing, ding them again. Because they are stalling. They're preventing wrestling. And that's not the same thing as if a guy keeps pushing you, he could push you for 4 minutes, but if you're trying to wrestle, that's not stalling at all. And so that's one thing that I always I struggle with, is that a lot of refs, if they call stalling, they're like, well, he can do whatever he wants for 25 seconds before I can call stalling again. I'm like, no, if he's stalling again, call him again, because he's still doing the same thing. That's like if you're speeding and they give you a ticket, then you're just like, well, I got 30 miles before they can get me for speeding again. It's like, no, I mean, if you're speeding, then you're speeding, so we're going to give you another ticket. And that's the way it should be. Whereas if they're actually trying to wrestle, but a guy's just shoving them, or if a guy's literally has the legs in and is ripping a half on him and he's stalling, I'm like you got to think, is he trying to get out? Is he trying to improve, or is he just laying there? If he can't move, then... There's been so many times that I see a ref call stalling on one of our guys when the other guy has 2 legs in and a half, and he's just ripping his shoulder, and he's like, you got to move, bottom. And I'm like, yo, ref, let me put you in that and then see if you can move, man.
I mean, I was really cranking on it.
You weren't going over.
I was trying to pin you, but you weren't turning.
And
I couldn't.
That's where I think you need more refs that have wrestled at a higher level, and I know it's hard to get, but ideally that's, and again, Karl Marx's perfect world, that's what it would be, to where it's like, well, I've been in this position, the kid can't move, so that's stalling. Or if a guy's just bellying you out and you can't move, that's also not stalling. I don't know.
So that's my point of contention.
We got derailed a little bit.
That's my point of contention as to why I almost borderline currently like the elite style of freestyle better than the elite style of folk style at this point in time. Give me your points as to why you would rather see folk style rather than freestyle.
Well, one, I think in every match that you can point out an injustice in folk style wrestling at the NC2A level, at the elite level, I could point out double that at the freestyle level. I think the subjectivity of 3 referees on the same mat calling all different points. That was 2-2. No, that was 4-0. No, that was 2-2. Or that was 2-0. It's unbelievable. I think there was a match, I cannot think of what the specific match was, but Jordan Burroughs tweeted out, what the heck just happened? And it was like, if the best wrestler in the world doesn't understand what the heck just happened, absolutely nobody understood why the score went on the scoreboard that did. And we just like move on, and then the commentators are always like, not exactly sure how that score came up to be. It's like, what the heck? Like, at least in folk style, we're arguing, is that stalling? Is that not? Is that a takedown? Is that not? Everybody understands the rule set, But if the commentators of the sport don't know how the score became what it was, then we got a problem on our hands. And that drives me insane. Insane.
That's probably a fair point because we're currently going through that very situation right now to decide our world team between Yanni and Zane.
Right.
Where everybody was like, wait, what? Why were how did those points end up on the board? They were talking about on Flow Wrestling, on Flow Radio. They were talking about a match between Ed Ruth and John Reeder, where it was like 8-0 Ed Ruth, and then they reviewed it and came back, and it was like 8-2 Reeder.
Yeah.
After the review or whatever.
It was like hip
So
tips.
It's like you win by tech. Actually, my
No.
bad, man.
He wins by tech.
It's literally like this. Hey, you're up by so much. We have to legally stop this match. Hold on. You're up by so much that we legally have to stop this match. Mercy rule on both
Exactly.
sides. Yeah. That's probably the best reason. To give another reason why I would say Folkstyle is just what is wrestling, and the wrestling is not to expose someone's back. Wrestling is to pin them, and I think that Folkstyle wrestling puts more of an emphasis on holding another human on their back.
Yeah.
Whereas freestyle is like this, like that's points where you just like if you're on your butt, that's pretty much 2.
It was when I saw you for the first time ever in the Lincoln East wrestling room where we used to
Yep. This is
wipe
when we
boogers
met.
on the blue guys on the wall.
That's
You'd be
true.
like, reverse somersault over my back. That's a pin in freestyle.
That's a pin in freestyle.
I'm like, who is this freak hopped up on Skittles and Mountain Dew?
Speaking of which,
I would
thank you again to
Yeah.
Mountain Dew Liberty Brew
Liberty Brew.
sponsoring this podcast.
I would agree with Drew on there's something about the pure control aspect of folk style wrestling, and that's why so many great MMA fighters right now, their main skill set is folk style wrestling. You don't see the Russian wrestlers have near the success that the American wrestlers do currently in the UFC because I think because American wrestlers understand control better because they're more accustomed to it through folk style wrestling. Is that fair?
Yeah, you could make a little bit of an argument there that because wrestling is so much more popular in Russia, that not as many wrestlers are getting into MMA in Russia. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate, but
That's possible.
But I do agree with both of you guys' point on the fact that, yeah, if you have 2 5-year-olds wrestling on the living room floor, in my opinion, it looks a lot closer to folk style wrestling than it does to freestyle.
Yeah.
They're not like, it's not like, I'm just going to see if I can roll this guy over his back and then let him up.
Your back went past 90. Ah! Give me your toys. What?
Got your back past 90, tipped you.
And I honestly think the only reason that anybody thinks freestyle is better, at least in the U.S., is because that's the world style. It's the international style, and
here's some, yeah.
and that's the mecca of wrestling.
Something I've found interesting, and this is, you talk to most current American wrestlers that are post college that are currently wrestling on the international circuit, and it seems like most of those guys want to say that they like freestyle better, or that they would prefer, like, for college wrestling and high school wrestling to be freestyle and stuff like that. And it's just interesting as to why a lot of those guys say that. I would argue that I think it has a lot to do with recency bias. It's what they're doing now, and so they want to believe that it's better. That would be my argument, but I don't know.
Well, and again, it's the Olympics. I mean, what's the goal as a wrestler to win the Olympics? More than the NCAAs, and that you have to be great at freestyle that way.
Yeah.
And honestly, top-bottom wrestling doesn't translate into international wrestling. So that's where you get rewarded for being way better on your feet, is no top-bottom wrestling. To where, I don't know, I guess it's so different that for some guys like a Derek Moore, who's so good on top, like that's not going to translate. Your success is probably not going to translate nearly as well to.
Yeah. I would argue that there are aspects of top and bottom wrestling that help you become a better.
Absolutely.
Just as Greco helps folk style.
Yeah.
What would you say to this? freestyle wrestling is easier than folk style wrestling.
I was thinking that. You don't have to be in as good a shape.
Think of a 6-minute
I
match.
don't know about easy. I don't know if easier is the word, but you don't have to be in as good a shape.
I would say that
Well,
would be an easier thing.
which actually is becoming a little more out of shape I am. Maybe I should start.
Now, as
Pretending I like
Easier.
freestyle
Okay, I can't answer that question very well. Give me some more. Are you willing to give me a little bit more?
well, I think one is just what Drew said. You have to be in better shape to wrestle folk style. You are engaging more muscles throughout a 6-minute match in folk style wrestling than freestyle wrestling. That in itself means that it's easier. You burn less calories. The other one is the concept of having to fight and figure it out on bottom while somebody is trying to hold you down, whereas in freestyle wrestling you get let back up to your feet.
Well, I mean, there are aspects of folk style wrestling that are definitely harder than freestyle wrestling, but you gotta make that same argument on the other side of the coin. I mean, it's harder in freestyle wrestling to not let your back be exposed to the mat at all, because that's what guys are trying to do. It's harder in freestyle wrestling to not just be rolled over your back, because that's what guys are trying to do to you. Whereas in folk style wrestling, you can just do it and it's no problem. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting held on.
I guess the only point that I'm
Also,
making
it's
is
way easy to get teched.
I mean, I think that's a great point of like it's easier to score points in freestyle.
yeah, it's easier to score
I don't
points.
have to grunt, push your head down, and get my legs back. I can just reach over here and throw you over your back and get it cheap too.
You know what you don't see in
Well,
freestyle
yeah.
is 18-second techs or whatever James Green tech Deacon in.
In folk style, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, in folk style.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you don't. That's impossible.
Yeah, I think that's
That's crazy. 10 points.
a good argument.
when
that,
you can end it that
at the
quick
very least-
at the very highest level.
Yeah, that's a good argument that at the very least,
Move it to 16 or something.
at the very least, the mercy rule in freestyle is a little too low.
Heck no, I wouldn't want my legs broken for 3 more rolls.
Well, no, what they
he
should
went out
do,
of
what they
bounds,
should
Got
though.
me at 10, bro.
No, but
Yeah.
what they should do is just limit it to 2 laces, like they used to.
Yeah, that's what they used to do.
I
don't know.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. With that being said, how much I love folk style wrestling, I think it is important to note that I love freestyle. Like I do love the change. I would never, if somebody put a gun to my head and said folk style or freestyle, I'd say folk style. But I would never advocate ever for our wrestlers to not wrestle freestyle or Greco, because I think there's a huge benefit at doing something different. Like Keenan already talked about how, bottom parterre and knowing how to move your hips and defend a gut wrench can help you in folk style wrestling. I think Greco, limiting the amount of tacks that you can take develops really good tenacity in wrestlers. I think our wrestlers that wrestle Greco kind of learn how to really shore up positions and how to get tough, and you've got to match your limited amount of offense that you're allowed to use. You've got to match it with raising your intensity, and you've got to do everything right, and it's got to be harder and faster and stronger. And so I think as far as developing that tenacity that a wrestler needs to have on the mat, Greco develops that. And I love freestyle wrestling, and I would never advocate for only wrestling folk style 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Like, I like folk style wrestling more. Gun to my head, I'm choosing folk style. But it is cool it's cool. Like, I do love seeing a cool chest wrap.
Yeah.
It's like that does change. Like, seeing Kyle Dake throw a freaking chest wrap into the sky is just awesome.
Yeah.
And, like, there's cool things that the difference in rules makes for these cool situations that you're just not really going to see in folk style.
Yeah.
It also makes it more fun to do. I think for people who are really focused on folk style, to wrestle freestyle and Greco is probably like a nice relief to where they're not as... Some kids are not maybe as invested to where they're freer to wrestle. They're freer to make mistakes because losing it, they don't probably take it nearly as hard as they would if it was a folk style match. And so I think that opens up creativity for some guys. I love like just going in the room and wrestling Greco with some of the guys or wrestling freestyle because it's just different and it's just, I don't know, I just feel like it's
style
more fun.
that you developed?
Oh, yeah.
With only legs? What?
Oh, yeah.
Penguin wrestling.
Penguin Wrestling, also known as
Penguin Wrestling's great.
also known. Oh gosh, what's the other name for it?
Penguin Wrestling, because I invented it.
Dang it!
What you do with Penguin Wrestling is you put a singlet on and you put your hands in the singlet, and then you wrestle with no arms.
We need to pull that up. There's
Reverse
a vlog.
reverse Greco.
It's
Reverse Greco. Yeah.
It's,
I was remembering there was some
It's
other
the anti-Greco.
something else.
It's
that
reverse Greco.
Reverse Greco. Yeah. I knew there was another name for
one,
it.
it's really fun, and two, it's so exhausting. You would not think that wrestling with no arms is tiring. It's way more tiring than probably the other styles of wrestling.
Yeah, it's tough. I'll get a clip of that pulled up for next week.
Yeah, it's great.
Go to
great
the Lincoln
time.
East Wrestling vlog. Is it
Yeah,
Lincoln East
it's
Wrestling
in
vlog or
one of my
Joe Vlog?
vlogs. It's
Yep.
one of my vlogs. I don't remember.
YouTube. You guys can find it. Kids enjoy that one. Reverse.
It's
Greco.
great,
So-
and you should try it. And it's fun, and it burns the lungs.
We're about out of time here. So rapid fire.
We've already. Let's skip 4 and let's go to 5.
Rapid fire. Well, we're gonna rapid fire it.
We've already rapid fired this
We did.
before.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah, we already
we
have.
did. Okay. All right. Rapid fire then. Polar bear versus gorilla. Go.
This is a really tough one. I've heard Dan Dalamali tell stories about the polar bears in
Oh my
Alaska eating
gosh.
people. But I do not. I have a really hard time seeing a gorilla ever lose in anything.
Agreed. I don't think
Guys,
any animal can mess with a gorilla.
Here's the deal. Polar bears are massive. In my understanding, they're
Have you
basically
seen
they're basically about the same.
Giant gorillas?
Dude, they're
mountain gorillas?
Polar bears are bigger than gorillas. Look it up. Look up weights. Give me some weights right now.
All right, you look at polar bear.
Polar bears are bigger than gorillas. I used to be team gorilla. I used to be the biggest gorilla guy on the face of this planet. I know you guys think I never changed my mind about things. I was gorilla times 1,000 back in the day.
Okay.
I did a whole bunch of research on it. The large bears of this world would defeat a gorilla. Grizzly bear, polar bear, maybe even some black bears might be able to defeat a gorilla. But gorilla might have a chance against a black bear. Some of the smaller black bears. Most of the large, which polar bear and grizzly bear are the two largest species of bear, I believe.
Okay.
Kodiak bear.
Well, the polar bear is going to outweigh the gorilla by quite a bit,
Exactly.
but that doesn't mean anything.
Oh, it means, yeah.
It doesn't mean that
means
much.
something.
A gorilla, okay,
Yeah.
a polar bear can do like this. Like, that's about it.
Yeah.
I feel like a gorilla could like rip its arms off. I think a gorilla is way stronger.
No.
A polar bear is just
No, a 500-pound gorilla is not way stronger than a 1,600-pound polar
okay,
bear.
it's not 1,600. Like 1,000 pounds for a polar bear and like 500 for a gorilla.
500's the biggest a gorilla gets, I believe.
No, that's like the mean.
Is that what it says on there?
Yeah,
Is that what the Googles
four
say?
something. And then a polar bear is 990.
Well, okay.
We'll just round up.
I'm still going gorilla because I just have a hard time.
Yeah, I don't see how a gorilla. It's way too. That's like Jeff fighting just a really fat person. It's like, yeah, they weigh more, and they're just like,
He wouldn't.
yeah, they just do that, and then Jeff.
Yeah, and if Jeff's main.
the only thing Jeff can do is a guillotine. 'Cause that's all he knows.
And if Jeff.
Well,
But
so I don't
I'm
know.
dang good at
Yeah,
it.
but guess what?
If you could learn a rear naked choke.
If
you'd do
Jeff's main way of fighting it was to try to get a hold of it with his hands and bite it, that's not going to do a lot.
a gorilla wouldn't bite it. A gorilla would
Yes,
like just
that's their.
heads off,
Just twist its head off.
and then heads off.
Hey, great
Oh.
comment by Brett Labuti. He says, inside trips all day when penguin wrestling.
Oh, hey, by the way,
It is
Brett,
true.
congratulations.
What, he got married?
He won the chapstick.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
Hey, Brett, one time I
Hey,
actually was
just-
wrestling both of our 106-pounders this year in penguin wrestling. I tried to do a double inside trip, one to this way, one to this way. I did the splits and hurt myself for the next week.
Well,
So I wouldn't recommend a double inside trip at
Double
any point in time.
inside-
well, if you
double
try to,
inside trip, not
Oh,
a
yeah.
great move.
Yeah.
yeah, that wouldn't feel good.
No, it did not.
Brett, just DM me your address, and I will send you some chapstick. Or I
Will
can
you?
probably-
Will you send it to him?
Yeah. If
Okay.
You DM,
Brett.
if he really wants it.
Hey, Brett, call his bluff on this.
For the record, Shelly Turman has not gotten You've Got Mail yet.
Well,
that
that's
is
because I'm going to
because-
deliver to her in person.
Or as Drew would say, we've got mail.
We've got mail. Now she's got mail.
Well, that as well.
Oh, also the cap is broken. Just figured that out.
Okay, well,
All right. Well,
tape
here
it
we
up
go.
before you
All
mail
right,
it to him.
Let's wrap this up.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor and a pleasure.
Make sure to subscribe and hit the alarm bell right next to the sub little button to make sure you get this right as we go live, because we put a lot of stuff at the start that is riveting entertainment. So
And
Riveting.
and subscribe on all podcast forms.
we are
wherever
available.
you get your podcasts.
We are available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Over and out, ladies and gentlemen.